It's 12:47 a.m. Your room is almost completely dark except for the pale blue light of your phone resting against your chest. One unread message. You've already opened it twice. The ceiling above you looks unfamiliar somehow, like it belongs to a different version of your life. You tell yourself you're not tired, but your breathing is slower. The air feels heavier. Even the silence sounds different. And for no clear reason, everything you felt fine about at 4 p.m. now feels exposed. Why? Midnight doesn't change your life. It changes you. Or at least, it feels like it does. There's this strange shift that happens after midnight. You've noticed it before. The way thoughts grow louder when the world grows quieter. The way conversations you barely cared about earlier suddenly replay with sharper edges. The way that one sentence you said, or didn't say, now carries weight. Like we talked about in that quiet space about why you replay conversations, it never really begins with the conversation itself. It begins later, when there's no noise left to compete with it. After midnight, there's no competition, no notifications, no traffic, no errands waiting politely in the background, just you, and the soft hum of something you don't quite have a name for. Maybe it's 1:16 a.m. now. You're scrolling without seeing, thumb moving, eyes unfocused. You pause on someone's photo longer than you meant to, zoom in slightly, zoom out. You don't even know what you're looking for, but you feel it. That difference, it's subtle, not dramatic, just a small emotional tilt, like the room has leaned a few degrees to the left. During the day, your mind is outward. It performs, it reacts, it keeps up. At night, it turns inward, and inward is louder. Have you noticed how your memories feel closer after midnight? Not clearer, closer. As if they're sitting at the edge of your bed instead of tucked away somewhere safe and distant. Little things rise up. The look someone gave you. The text that ended too abruptly. The version of yourself you were trying to be. You don't chase these thoughts on purpose. They just arrive. And you let them sit there with you. Because in the dark, there's no one watching. That's part of it. Midnight removes the audience. You don't have to perform certainty, or confidence, or distraction. The mask slips a little, even if you didn't know you were wearing one. And sometimes that feels honest. Other times uncomfortable. There's something about the stillness. The way the world feels paused but you don't. The way time stretches. 5 minutes feels like 15. A single thought can last an hour. You start asking yourself softer questions, not out loud, just internally. Was I too much earlier? Did they mean what they said? Why did that bother me more than I admitted? You don't demand answers. You just let the questions hover. And here's the strange part. During the day, these same thoughts wouldn't land the same way. They'd bounce off the noise. They'd dissolve into errands and conversations and background music. But after midnight, there's space. And space changes weight. Even your body feels different. Movements slower. Reactions delayed. You stare at your reflection in the black screen for a second too long before it lights up again. There's a version of you that only exists at this hour. The one who feels more honest. Slightly more fragile. Slightly more aware. You might even feel braver after midnight. Or more nostalgic. Or more tempted to send messages you won't send in the morning. It's not random. It's rhythm. When the outside world dims, the inside world brightens. That's why your mind circles back to unfinished moments. That's why silence feels thicker. That's why the replay button, the one we talked about before, gets pressed a little easier at night. Because there's nothing stopping it. And maybe that's what makes it feel different. You're not distracted from yourself. You're with yourself. Fully. And that can feel like clarity or confrontation. Sometimes both. There's a quiet contradiction here. After midnight, you can feel deeply connected to people, thinking about them, missing them, imagining conversations, while also feeling completely alone in your room. The loneliness isn't dramatic, it's just present, like the faint buzz of electricity in the walls. You start noticing details you ignored during the day. The sound of your own breathing. The way your chest tightens slightly when you remember something awkward. The way your stomach drops when you think about uncertainty. Small sensations, but amplified. Midnight doesn't create new emotions. It removes the filters. And without filters, everything feels closer to the surface. You might tell yourself you're overthinking. But what if you're just finally hearing yourself? There's a moment, maybe around 2:03 a.m., When you put your phone down and stare at the ceiling again, the glow fades, the room returns to its original darkness, and in that darkness, there's a kind of truth, not a dramatic one, not a life-changing revelation, just an awareness that you've been moving quickly all day, reacting, responding, performing small roles, and now there's no role left to play. It's just you. The version of you that wonders if you're on the right path. The version that replays tone of voice. The version that feels both small and expansive at the same time. You don't always like this version, but you recognize it. That's the shift. Confusion turns into recognition. Recognition into slight discomfort. Discomfort into a quiet realization that maybe this isn't about midnight at all. Maybe it's about stillness. Maybe it's about the rare moments when nothing is demanding your attention, so your own thoughts finally do. And tomorrow morning, when the sunlight fills your room, this version of you will soften again. The edges won't feel so sharp. The questions won't press as close. But tonight they're here, and you're here with them. The unread message still waits. The ceiling still stretches above you. The air is still heavy. Midnight didn't change who you are. It just removed the noise. And now as this video ends, the room will go quiet again. The screen will dim. You'll feel that small shift, that almost invisible difference, and maybe, just for a second, you'll notice which version of you is still awake. Midnight removes the audience, and suddenly you feel unfiltered. During the day, you don't notice the audience. That's the strange part. No one announces it. No spotlight clicks on. But it's there in small ways. In the way you phrase a message. In the way you laugh half a second longer than you need to. In the way you choose certain words and swallow others. You edit yourself constantly. Not in a dramatic way, just tiny adjustments. Soft corrections. You smooth the rough edges of your thoughts before they leave your mouth. You shape your reactions so they fit the room. You decide which parts of you are acceptable in public light, and it feels normal. It feels necessary. Then midnight arrives. The hallway outside your room is quiet. Notifications slow down. The world stops asking you to respond. There's no one to impress. No one to reassure. No one to subtly compete with. The invisible crowd disperses, and you don't realize how much you were performing until you stop. It can happen in a single moment. You set your phone down. The screen goes dark. Your reflection stares back at you from the black glass. For a second, you don't recognize that version of yourself. Not because it's unfamiliar, but because it's unguarded. There's no one watching now. You don't have to maintain tone. You don't have to appear unbothered. You don't have to pretend that comment earlier didn't sting a little. You don't have to hold your posture together. Your shoulders drop. Your thoughts shift. And suddenly, feelings you kept neatly folded during the day start to unfold on their own. It's subtle at first. A sentence you replay. A look you remember. A conversation you thought was finished but somehow isn't. Without the audience, there's no need to protect your image of yourself. So the honest reactions slip through. Maybe you were hurt more than you admitted. Maybe you cared more than you said. Maybe you're lonelier than you let yourself notice. These thoughts don't arrive loudly. They don't knock. They just sit beside you, as if they've been waiting for the room to empty. That's the thing about an audience. Even when it's invisible, it shapes you. When you're being observed, you become aware of yourself. You become the version of you that can be seen. But after midnight, you're no longer being seen. You're being felt. There's a difference. In the dark, you don't curate reactions. You don't adjust your face. You don't rehearse future conversations. You don't pretend you're certain about things you're not certain about. You let the uncertainty exist. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Because without an audience, there's no validation, no subtle applause, no immediate reassurance that you're doing life correctly. There's just silence. And in that silence, your internal voice changes tone. It becomes less polished, more honest. You might notice small contradictions rising to the surface. You told someone earlier that you didn't mind, but maybe you did. You said you were fine, but maybe you weren't. You acted detached, but maybe you felt more than you showed. Midnight makes space for those maybes. It doesn't force answers. It just removes distraction. There's something almost vulnerable about sitting alone in a room where no one expects anything from you. You don't have to smile. You don't have to respond quickly. You don't have to hold your opinions in a socially acceptable shape. You can feel messy. You can feel uncertain. You can feel softer than you allow yourself to feel at noon, and that softness can be disorienting. Because during the day, strength often means composure. It means quick replies and steady expressions. It means holding things together. But after midnight, holding things together feels unnecessary. You can let them loosen. You might even notice how your body changes when the audience disappears. Your jaw unclenches. Your breathing deepens. You lie differently in your bed, less structured, more collapsed into yourself. As if gravity has slightly increased. There's no need to impress gravity. It's just you. And when it's just you, the internal dialogue becomes more raw. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just unfiltered. Thoughts form without being revised for public viewing. You admit things quietly. You miss someone. You regret something. You want something you told yourself you didn't want. Without witnesses, there's less shame in acknowledging these truths. There's no immediate reaction to manage. No face reading yours. No subtle judgment to anticipate. The audience is gone. And what remains is the version of you that doesn't need to be understood in real time. That version can be contradictory. It can be unsure. It can change its mind halfway through a thought. It can sit with a feeling without explaining it. It can feel too much, or not enough. And because there's no one there to correct you, you're allowed to experience your emotions in their original form. Not the edited version. Not the summarized version. The full, uncut one. That's why midnight can feel heavier. Not because something new appeared, but because nothing is suppressing what was already there. When the audience leaves, the performance ends. And when the performance ends, the real voice, the quieter one, the less practiced one, starts to speak a little louder, and you're the only one there to hear it after midnight. Unfinished conversations feel unfinished in you. It's 1:28 a.m., and you're staring at a message thread that technically ended hours ago. The last text was simple, casual. Okay, or maybe just a thumbs up reaction. On the surface, nothing dramatic, no argument, no clear tension. But something about it doesn't sit right. You read it again, the same words, same punctuation, yet now they feel heavier. Like there was something behind them that you missed earlier. During the day you accepted the ending. You moved on. You answered emails. You nodded at people. You told yourself it was fine. But after midnight, it doesn't feel finished. It feels paused. There's a difference. In the quiet, your mind reopens the conversation as if it's still happening somewhere. You hear their tone differently. You replay your own words and wince slightly. Maybe you were too short. Maybe you over-explained. Maybe you should have asked one more question. It's not that you want conflict. It's that you want closure. And closure is harder to feel in the dark. You lie there, the room dim except for the faint glow of your screen, and your thoughts begin stitching together small details. The half-second delay before they replied. The way their message felt slightly colder than usual. The part where you almost said something honest, but didn't. That almost becomes louder than what was actually said. Because unfinished conversations aren't just about words. They're about the emotions that didn't get space. The questions you swallowed. The reactions you softened. Earlier when the world was loud, you could ignore it. You told yourself not to overthink. You kept busy. You let the day carry you forward. But now the day is gone, and the conversation is still inside you. It's strange how a simple exchange can linger like this. You might even feel slightly embarrassed for caring. It wasn't a big deal. Nothing exploded. No dramatic ending. Still, your chest feels tight. Because something in you knows it wasn't complete. Maybe you wanted reassurance and didn't ask for it. Maybe you felt misunderstood but chose silence instead of clarity. Maybe you sensed distance and pretended you didn't. After midnight, pretending becomes harder. You start to hear the unsaid parts more clearly. The pauses between sentences, the subtle shifts in energy. You wonder what they were really thinking. You wonder what you were really feeling. And the more you replay it, the more the conversation feels alive again. As if it never truly ended. This is the quiet discomfort of unfinished moments. They don't scream, they echo. In the dark, echoes are louder. You turn to your side, adjust your pillow, tell yourself to let it go, but your mind circles back anyway. Not aggressively, just persistently. You imagine alternative versions. What if you had responded differently? What if you had been more honest? What if you had simply said, "That hurt," or "I miss you," or "I don't understand"? You didn't. And now those unsent sentences hover in the air above your bed. Unfinished conversations feel unfinished in you because they become internal dialogues. The other person may have moved on. They may be asleep, unaware. But you are still mid-sentence inside your own head. There's a subtle loneliness in that. You can't complete the exchange without them. But you also can't ignore what's unresolved inside you. So you sit in it. You remember their expression, their last voice note, the way they said your name. You analyze small changes. Maybe they've been different lately. Maybe you have. The conversation becomes a mirror, not just of what was said, but of what you wanted. And that's where it starts to feel deeper. Maybe you wanted more attention, more care, more understanding. Maybe you wanted them to notice something without you having to explain it. And when that didn't happen, you told yourself it was fine. But after midnight, fine doesn't hold the same weight. It cracks a little. There's something about lying in the dark that makes honesty harder to avoid. The silence presses gently against your thoughts. You can't distract yourself with movement or noise. You feel the unfinished edges more clearly. And it's not always about romantic tension or conflict. Sometimes it's a small moment. A joke that didn't land. A story you told that didn't get the reaction you hoped for. A vulnerable comment that was met with neutrality. Tiny things. But tiny things accumulate. When we talked about replaying conversations before, it wasn't really about memory. It was about meaning. About the need to feel understood, to feel aligned. After midnight, that need surfaces. You don't just want the conversation to end. You want it to feel complete. You want the emotional loop to close. But instead it lingers open. Like a door slightly ajar. And you can't help but peek through it again. You scroll up further in the chat history. Look for patterns. Read older exchanges to reassure yourself that things are still okay. Or to confirm your quiet suspicion that something shifted. You're not trying to create drama. You're trying to feel settled. Yet the more you look, the more you notice. And the more you notice, the more unfinished it feels. There's a quiet vulnerability in admitting that words affect you this much. That tone matters. That timing matters. That silence matters. You might not say it out loud tomorrow. But right now, in the dark, you feel it fully. Unfinished conversations live inside you because they connect to something deeper. Your need to be heard, to be chosen, to be understood without having to fight for it. When those needs feel slightly unmet, even in small ways, your mind holds onto the moment. Not to punish you, not to trap you, but to try to solve it. To smooth it out, to complete it internally. Yet some conversations can't be completed alone. And that's the quiet ache of it. You stare at the ceiling again. The room is still. The world is still. But inside you, the dialogue continues. Not loudly. Just enough to remind you that something remains open, and in the silence after midnight, open things feel wider.